Yes, I'm going to demo a little bit of chopping out. I'll put you on the tripod, I'll show you a few different techniques and the chasing ends on each one. I'll just run you through what I've got here to put in this video. So we've got the 18 volt Bosch SDS with the dust extractor on there for some stitch drilling. We've got the 36 volt Bosch for a bit of chasing. I've got the little Milwaukee 12 volt as well. We're going to show that for the stitch drilling, and we'll give it a go at a bit of chasing as well. We'll try them all. I've got different end bits here, so there's a scutch end on there. Normal chasing bits. This from DeWalt is one of my favourites, so that does a good job of tidy chopping out. But I'll show you all these. We've got the scoops. We've got a little old fan blade on there that we use for cutting out as well. So I'll do a few different setups on the tripod. I'll stitch drill one of these out, and then we'll break it out with an SDS. We'll try the low powered ones, and well, I'll say low powered, we'll try the smaller batteried versions. Yeah, always with your PPE, so gloves, glasses, ear defenders and your mask. Again, we don't want any dust breathing in. I've got the angle grinder here as well with a dust extractor on. With the extractor on, it'll only go to 25mm deep, so it'll get you so far. But if you're wanting to get the full 35mm in, it's extractor off and dust tsunami, so you can't really do that in my opinion. So we do have the wall chaser. Again, you can scoop that across. That'll chase out to 40mm hours, so we could scoot across and leave the lines in as well. I might bring that up and give it a go, but the guys downstairs have got it getting on with some real work while I'm messing about up here. So we'll get straight on with this video. I'll pop you on a tripod, maybe voice it over or whatever. It'll be noisy, so there's no point leaving the audio going. It'll be music or me chatting over the top of it, and show you a few different ways of putting this together. So here we can see a demonstration of some stitch drilling, and with this one I've got the Bosch 18 volt drill with the dust extractor on the front of it. Now that keeps most of the dust down pretty well, to be fair. You know, it saves all the tidying up at the end from this particular section, although it does get a little bit messy later on. You can see with this I stitch drill around the edge, and that's just to try and give a nice shape so we're not blowing out any more of the wall than necessary. And then just shotgun the front, if you like, so lots of different little holes all over the front just to loosen up the brick, and then go around the edge. I always try and go in pretty deep around the edge just to give the depth of the box that we're trying to achieve, and then break out the back, and in doing so go on a fairly parallel angle to the wall, so you're kind of scooping out the back rather than smashing into it, and that's to just try and keep it flat so you're not exploding the brick and making it hard when you come to the stage of fitting the box. We was lucky with these bricks. They were fairly soft and not crumbly, so it gave a nice flat back on most of these. Now with this one I'm using the fan, and this is how I tend to do it generally when the plaster's quite deep and old, because it's the easiest way of cutting a rectangle shape out without disturbing any of the other plaster. You'll know in old Victorian houses especially, as soon as you touch or look at the plaster it can all fall off the wall in massive clumps. And this is the way I found that generally gives you the best chance of success. And the plaster in this place was reasonably loose in places, so we was trying to be as careful as we could. But on this particular job, the damp proofing company were coming in afterwards anyway to take most of the plaster off, so I've largely done this just to demonstrate on this video. And you can see here again a nice parallel angle to the wall to try and scoop in, and I'm using the Bosch the DeWalt comb tooth chaser SDS bit in this one, and that gives the best cut in my experience. It's one of the best bits for an SDS gun in my opinion. They last forever, and we've had these for quite a long time. It's not one of the pricey £100 ones that you see now, which is the SDS. I can't remember what they call it, but there's a different version of SDS attachment now. This is just an SDS Plus bit. I think it was about 15-20 quid when we got them, but I've not seen them anywhere for ages. So we've got 4 or 5 of these, and they're still going strong. You can see again, this is with a Bosch 18 volt hammer drill, SDS hammer drill, and again going in straight away this time without cutting out around the edge. And this was just to try and show that if you've got wallpaper, especially on the front of the plaster, sometimes that can work to your advantage, and you're not going to blur too much out. You can see here quite how soft the bricks were. So obviously I've got this on time lapse, but they really were coming out quite easy. Nice soft bricks, and they were pretty damp because of the ingress of moisture into the building from wherever it's coming, so they weren't especially hard. And if you've got your hard engineering bricks or blue bricks, you're definitely going to need a grinder to at least cut out some of the shape, and then you can kind of scoop out with an SDS afterwards. But these came out quite nice and achieve a nice cut around the box, so we haven't got a load of blowout. You're saving time when you come to fit your boxes and filling in around them. It always helps. So I've swapped bits on this one. So I've gone here for the comb arm egg bit, and I hadn't realised at this stage, but this wasn't plaster. So I'm still upstairs, but it's an external wall on this case, and for whatever reason they've used a render, and I've gone here with the Bosch bit just to try something different. And you can see here, as soon as you get a bit of hard render on there, it's a little bit trickier to keep control without the use of a grinder. So normally I would have gone and got a grinder and cut out the render, but as I was already at it with the SDS bits, I thought we'd power through and show that it can be done. You just need a bit of perseverance. The problem is, you know, when you've got that harder surface at the outset, the corners often don't break out quite as clean. So this is one of the issues you'll find when you first start chopping boxes out. If you've not cut out tight into the corners, actually fitting the box in, don't make the mistake of starting to chase deeper into the wall. That's often the default that people go to, and before you know it, you've chased a massive hole out for your back box to go into, but not cleaned the corners out, and by the time you come to do that, you're far too deep into the wall. In this case, we've been fitting 25mm back boxes, so as what we tend to do is fit 35s in the front room and at the side of beds, and in kitchens, anywhere where you're likely to have a USB front going in the future. But everywhere else, generally speaking, a 25mm box is fine. Some people put 35s in everywhere. I've no problem with that. That's just your choice, I guess, at the end of the day. Most USB fronts will actually fit in a 25mm box anyway now, but still, just as a matter of course, we put 35s in for those. You can see with this one I had a storage heater in the way at one side, and this one was a little bit trickier because of that, because you can't scoop in from the other angle. So I decided to give the old scoop a try. So I've got the, I think this is an arm egg bit as well. So this is an actual scoop where it'll go through the back of the box. It's the exact width of a back box, so you can scoop in from the sides, and it should take out to the corners quite nice and leave you a flat surface in the back. And then just to get into the corners, put the Bosch SDS bit back on again, the chisel bit, just to try and clean them out and get us a nice squared off hole. So it's hard to explain, but if you've got an obstruction at one side where you can't get a nice parallel angle to the wall, getting in nicely is difficult. And as soon as you start chasing head on into bricks, if you've not done this before, they will kind of explode on you and make it really difficult when you come to fit the boxes into the wall. So here I'm just using the scoop to get the plaster out. We was quite lucky on this one, as I said, the plaster was reasonably deep, so the oval tube will fit in this quite nicely. It's the perfect width for it, and it's just to clean out the chase right to the brick, and yeah, it's all good to go there. Cleaned that one out nice and easy. Because the bricks were quite soft when the chase wasn't quite deep enough just with the plaster, and I think this was one of them where it just wasn't quite enough. It will do the soft bricks as well. I mean, primarily I use this for getting behind the skirting boards, and it'll scoop block out all day long. But harder bricks, it tends to struggle. But with these ones, it was fine. It went through no problem, so there was no need to get the grinder on it or anything. Could just go straight through and open up those chases ready for the oval tube, and let's just leave it ready to drop behind the skirting board. So always try and take a nice scoop out around where you're going to enter into the boxes. Some people bring the cables in at the middle, at the right, at the left. It's just force of habit. We try to always bring them in on the left. It's just the way we've always done it. Again, here you can see nice depth of plaster, but this one wasn't quite deep enough, so I've had to go into the brick a bit on this one. You can see there the brick dust coming off, and it just shows the way the scoop actually goes through it, absolutely no problem. And we've had this bit for quite some time. The thing you've got to watch with these ones is not to overuse them, so they get quite hot quite quickly, and if you do, they'll fracture and break, you know, more quickly than would otherwise happen if you just took a bit of patience with them and don't go all guns blazing on them. You can see here I'm demonstrating, well, Matthew's demonstrating the Titan wall chaser. So we've just got a budget twin blade chaser. The blades on this last forever. The dust that comes out of it, if you use a good M-type extractor, are minimal and nice and safe to use. We find this is a pusher, so I think the Arabo ones are pulling ones. I think the Metabo ones are pushing one, and that will actually eat out the chase if you pay for the blade. What we found with that is they wear out quite fast, and the cost of them made it not really worth it for us, so we just scoop out the chases. These are a couple of examples of where we couldn't quite get the chasing gun in, so we had to scoop out manually. And here you've got the oval tube fitted just with some screws dotted down the sides to hold it in place, and then brought together into the back box. So we've had a look through some different chasing techniques. I had no need to use the grinder on this job. I have popped a little clip in there to show the dust that's kicked off by it with the guard, the dust extraction guard, just so you can get a feel for the amount of dust that spills out. These bricks weren't particularly hard, so if you're coming across harder engineering bricks or some of the blue bricks that are out there, you would have to get the grinder out generally to get a neat finish, because you know, you're not going to be able to chop into them straight off with the SDS bits. So I was using the DeWalt comb tooth SDS bit, so it's an SDS Plus. I think there's a new one now that they've got out, and that's about 100 quid or so. These didn't cost anything like that. They were maybe £15. I haven't seen them anywhere for quite some time actually, so I don't know if they're still available or if there's just a stock issue like we have with so many other things. I popped a little picture up of a chop out that Nathan's done, so he's the apprentice, a couple that Matthew's had a go at, and obviously my ones that you saw me doing upstairs with varying results. Sometimes they break out nice and neat and easy. If you've got oil dried out plaster, as you'll all know, sometimes it just doesn't happen and the whole wall can end up dropping off on you. You know, that's something beyond your control. But I always find it's easier and simpler to go around with a fane first. You can do that with a tile cutting blade or just an old wood blade that's gone blunt, just to give you that neat cut out into the plaster, especially if it's a thick plaster. So if you're working on old lime-based plaster, you can go in with a nice fane blade, get it all cut away, so when you're doing the chop out, you're not really interfering and vibrating into large chunks. It just seems to work a little bit better in my opinion. Yeah, that's kind of where it is. I thought I'd just do a little demo of how we do the chasing out. You can stitch drill, you can use a grinder, you can use the fane, you can use the SDS straight in there, and they all get the job done. At the end of the day, we all have our different techniques and styles. You can use the old hammer and bolster chisel and do it by hand if you wish, but obviously there's no real need to be doing things like that anymore. These were all cordless drills as well that I used, as you saw earlier on in the video. No mains powered tools. Most pack enough of a punch now, as long as you've got a good array of batteries to be able to do a chop out, no trouble at all. So the Bosch 18 volt one I was using, that's perfectly adequate for chasing out most brick. The 36 volt, if you're struggling a little bit, that thing's an absolute beast. That'll get through most stuff. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that video and that it was some use. If you have any questions, drop them into the comments, and thank you all for watching. I'll see you on the next one.